Hi, welcome to Think Tech. We are raising awareness daily on technology, energy, diversity, and what's the other one? I just forgot the last one. Globalization. I'm so sorry about that. What a way to begin my show. I've said that about 200 times already. My name is Donna. I'm your host. This show is Center Stage, and we are coming to you from downtown Honolulu in Pioneer Plaza, very near Kumukuhua Theater, where I am also the managing director. Maybe my head was a little more in my managing director duties for a moment there. I apologize. We're really happy that you are here to join us, and I want to let you know that you can join us if you're watching the show live. You can also join us via Twitter. You can tweet to us at ThinkTechHI, and we would be more than happy to talk about your comments and answer your questions if you'd like. Today I am talking with Jason Taglianetti, who is the Multimedia Production Manager. HPR, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for being here. It took me a year to talk you into coming on my show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're here. And your business is so different from my business, or any aspect of my business is that part of me doesn't even know what questions to ask, but we'll just get there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Because I don't want to just say, what do you do?
Yeah.
So let's, if we can we start off with when you started working for HPR, Hawaii Public Radio, what was your entree to HPR?
My entree to HPR was that I was a podcaster first. I'm a sound engineer by trade, working as a sound engineer, and then I started podcasting as a way to try and do something else with my life, try to do something different maybe, to reach out, maybe help the arts organizations around town, so I started a podcast.
Okay, now wait, you can't just keep going.
No.
What was the name of the podcast that you had?
The podcast was called The Arts of Honolulu, and it was devoted to just Honolulu's art scene. And I had a calendar as well, and I interviewed various people, a la radio show-ish kind of a thing, and we did that for about 6 months.
So you did that through HPR hired you to come?
No,
You did this
I
on your own?
on my own, completely on my own.
Well, look at you.
I found this technology and said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out. And I figured it out. And about a year later, I was doing a radio show, volunteering to do sound effects for a serial radio show on HPR when they offered me a part-time job. And I became a board op. I did that for a year. And then, and that was the overnight, midnight to 8 a.m., saw nobody else who worked there, I could have not been there for all import, but was there to babysit a radio station overnight. And then a year after that, they offered me a full-time job when my predecessor, Jeff Ilardi, left. And they offered me his gig, and I took it.
And the title of that gig?
At the time, it was webmaster and production manager. And the idea was that I would do the website as well as the production end of radio, which is to produce promotional spots and local content.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we changed the title later on to be multimedia when we realized that I could do a lot more than just analog radio stuff. I could do digital content as well. So we wrapped that up into my department as well. Digital content being
you knew my question I was going to ask.
Digital content being text, web production, creating content for a website or creating audio content for a website, video, photographs, that kind of thing.
Okay. So
you
are
truly multimedia.
You're still doing a great deal of the website work now?
Correct, yes.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it's all behind the scenes.
Next time when I want to get a clip of Chris Vandercook interviewing one of our people, I'm going to come straight to you.
Right, exactly.
And when you say producing a show, can you spell out what is involved in producing a show, please?
Like, for example, if you listen to the Hawaii Symphony broadcast that we do, that's a show that I work on directly. My friend Bob will record the concerts at the Neil Blaisdell Concert Hall, and then we'll send them to me, and I'll get them and put them in the order that you heard them there. If you heard them in the concert hall, put the pieces in the correct order. And then I would then go to a host like Gene Schiller or somebody else and get them to narrate what happened, what the pieces were, what you heard, and assemble those pieces in the correct order so that it sounded like a radio show. And you could follow the action. You could follow that the conductor is now rearranging the orchestra in between movements, or get a sense of what's going on. During, not just during the, in between the pieces, essentially.
Very cool.
Yeah, basically packaging things for broadcast. Is
Okay.
how I like to put it.
And like, how much of what we hear on HPR, some of it sounds it all sounds like it's live?
Mm-hmm. A lot of it is live. A lot
of
of the radio you hear on HPR is live. We have a number of live shows that come in direct, like all things considered, in the afternoon, or not in the afternoon, the noontime show, that comes in live. The 4 o'clock show is a pre-record that's been worked on throughout the day since the noon broadcast until the 4 o'clock broadcast. For the East Coast, that's a 6 o'clock, I think, or an evening broadcast. So there's that. A lot of the local programming, the classical music, a lot of that is done live. Gene Schiller is live in the studio at 8 a.m. to noon, or 8:30 to noon.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
Every
that.
weekdays. A lot of the shows on the weekends are pre-recorded. But for the most part, we strive to have a person in the studio 24 hours a day.
So, and I've been in the studio before when you were doing the sound tech on the show. How much of your time is spent in packaging, and how much is in actual live production?
I don't do much live production anymore. We have board ops and other people who handle those kinds of things. I spend roughly about, I'd say 60% of my day is spent in a studio working on content that's pre-recorded and putting it together so that it can air.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But which means that roughly the ratio is, I believe, 1 to 4 for every minute that you hear on air. I've spent 4 working on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, when you're in editing like that, you're making it's kind of godlike.
In a way, yeah. Yes.
It's like, and thunder here. You know?
Right. Yeah. You're making decisions like, for example, if I have a piece of music that has been playing for 15 minutes and it ends and there's applause and the audience doesn't applaud right away, what do? Do I decide to take those 2 seconds out of it and move the audience closer to the end of the piece, or do I leave it alone and let there be those 2 or 3 seconds of silence? And in most cases, we leave it alone because it's a part of the performance.
Yeah.
But there's some times where it's it might be ungodly long, or there may be in between movements. You might find that the conductor rearranged the orchestra in between the second and third movements of a classical piece. In which case, you want to shrink that down because that's been 30 seconds or even a minute worth of dead air that we can't have.
Right.
So there's decisions like that I'll make, but I'll always double check with other people to have them listen to it and have them tell me, does this work? Does this sound okay? And if it doesn't pass the other person's ear, then I change it.
Then you'll change it. Well, how nice that you have respect for the integrity of like that hush before the audience applauds.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's about making sure that the experience you hear on the air is as close to what you heard in the concert hall as we can get, without, of course, having 7 seconds or 20 seconds of dead air, which is enough for someone to go click.
Right. Or not catch your station there. Oh, they're not.
Yeah, or
anymore.
turn it on to silence. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so which do you prefer, the on-air or the production?
Production.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got that.
Yeah, it's much more fun to create something that I know people will enjoy and will listen to and will have their lives enriched by this thing that I've worked on. That's really what drives me, what motivates me.
Oh, yeah. Well, the live stuff can be enriching too.
The
but
live
you
stuff
have
is
a lot
fun.
more control.
When I get to do live radio, that's when it gets to be really exciting because things are happening and you can't go back. You can't start over. You can't. If you drop the ball, you drop the ball.
Like when you forget
Like when you
part of our
forget.
mission
Right.
that I've said 200
Right.
times before.
And
Yeah.
it's all about how you pick it up and how you roll with it.
Right.
You know, that sets you apart, I think, from.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there is something to be said for the adrenaline that goes into a live as opposed to the taped, but man,
Yeah.
you can shape
Mm-hmm.
an experience for someone.
Right.
That's a really beautiful thing. Okay, so were you, how does one come to sound to say, I really want to be involved in sound? That was just, were you a total geek in school?
I was.
Okay.
Yeah, not as bad as some, but I was pretty much a geek. In high school, I had already decided that sound was going to be my life, that I was already interested. I was already recording bands in a studio environment when I was in high school. So I knew at a young age what I wanted to do. And the deciding factor was, playing with equipment, being able to get equipment in my hands and being able to play with it and try to understand what it was doing, why it was doing what it was doing, and how to get it to do what I wanted it to do. Basically,
yeah.
And that started for me at about 12 years old, 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Do you remember the moment when you were like, who's the sound guy? Or, who's doing that?
I think I have to go back to like this, it was a moment in time where I was really big. I first found music. I remember having a copy of the Off the Wall record, Michael Jackson. And I remember my friend had it and I wanted to copy it. And I had to figure out how to copy it from one tape to another, but I didn't have a double cassette deck. So I had 2 decks and figuring out how to get the sound from one to the other, and that's where it started.
Oh, you figured that out.
Yeah,
I didn't. I had to go out and buy a 2-deck cassette player.
Yeah. Well, at 11 years old, you don't have any money.
Yeah.
So.
I waited. I just
so
waited.
I had mine and I had my dad's, and I found a way to connect them and just did it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Okay, so that was your moment. It
Yeah.
was illegal, by the way, what you did.
Yes, it was.
Just wanted to
I didn't
throw
sell
that
it. I
there.
didn't sell it.
Okay, well, that's
No.
good.
But later on, I saw my mom worked in theater, and I was able to go and sit backstage in shows and go. So during a show my mom was working on, here, go sit in the booth with Eddie, and I'll be back. And if after the end of the show, and so I watched the show from the booth, and Eddie happened to be running sound, and so I saw that a lot in my life as well. So I knew that was a job. I knew that was something that someone could do.
Yeah, and again, there is a great deal of, you are really in touch with the mood of what is going on when you're controlling the sound of it. I remember doing a show, Curse of the Starving Class, and we were lucky enough that our sound guy was good friends with some musicians who composed some music to play within. Everyone in that show has a really long monologue, and we all got a piece of music written specifically for our monologue that's swelled in during the, oh my God, it changed everything about, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. As an actor, it completely changed my experience, and I know it changed the experience for the audience as well. Wow. I didn't realize that when I was a kid. I didn't.
Oh, the power of sound is huge. When I taught in high school at Castle for a while, I used to teach the power of sound and how it had the ability to change perceptions for an audience in a moment, where you could underscore a scene with Shakespeare, for instance, take like Hamlet or take any play, but underscore them with Beethoven, and you get this very romantic kind of feeling about it. And you underscore it with Mahler, and it's very dark, or Wagner, and all of a sudden the play and the words take on very different meanings. And it's all through the power of sound.
And we know when we're watching a movie subliminally, this is the bad guy, because music just told us. The camera angle might have had something to do with it, too.
Yeah.
We got to go to our first break already. I'm enjoying the conversation, Jason Taglianetti. We're going to be right back on center stage, so you stay put. We'll be back in about a minute.
Okay, this is Think Tech Hawaii, and it's Wednesday. Every Wednesday is Energy Wednesday here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy. 4 to 5 p.m. every Wednesday. Come and listen to us. And just to show you what I mean, I'm going to ask Sharon to tell us more.
Come and see us every Wednesday, as Jay said. And we have people like Jim Albers from HECO here, and co-host Ray Starling here every Wednesday. We not only go on Olelo and OC16, but also stream live. So please come visit us, hear about the latest in clean energy.
Okay, Jim, you've been here. You got any comment on all this?
As important as energy is in all of our lives today, this is a great forum and a great format to vet those issues. So I encourage everybody to listen in and participate.
Okay, Ray, what do you think for a close?
Well, I think this is the greatest show in the energy world here in Hawaii. You can come here every week, 1 hour, and catch the latest on what's happening and hear from the people who really know what's going on, like Jim Alberts. We appreciate your coming today.
Thank you.
Ray Starling, Sharon Moriwaki, Jim Alberts, and Jay Fidel here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy, 4 to 5
Aloha.
p.m. Wednesday. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha, namaskar, and hello. My name is Anu Hittel, and I host a show, Climate Change Beyond Outrage. In it, we go beyond outrage to look at solutions to climate problems facing people, nations, and the world. Join me every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Hawaii Standard Time. See you then.
Hi, we're back. This is Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Network. I am Donna Blanchard, your host, proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater. We're coming to you from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumukuhua Theater. If you would ever like to join us in our downtown studio audience, you may do so. Just email jay@thinktechhawaii.com and he will hook you up. We're talking with Jason Taglianetti, who is the multimedia production manager with HBR. I like saying it. You don't get to hear your name said like that.
Not too many
often,
people
do you?
pronounce it that way. Even I don't pronounce it
Oh,
that way.
well.
So.
My name is Blanchard, but
Okay.
no one says
Yeah.
that, including me. So
Yeah.
you may feel free to use
Okay.
it if you would like.
Okay.
I want to go back for just a minute, if we could, because you have the background in theater.
Mhm.
You were exposed to that from a very young age, which is really cool. You know
Mhm.
that you got. Was it musical theater or was it more?
It was all theater.
It was all
It
theater.
was just theater. My mom and dad. My mom was the one who wanted to do theater and try to make it her living, and so she volunteered for over at Army Community Theater back when they were over at Schofield Barracks. And my dad, being the good guy that he is, he was like, well, I got to support my wife somehow, so I'll do lights. So he did lights. My mom was on stage, and I was sitting in the front row, reading or coloring or whatever. But being in that environment, getting to see the rehearsal process and then the shows. In some cases, I got to see the rehearsals, but only hear the shows because I had to sit backstage in the dressing room. So I had my imagination going, and I think that's what's probably kickstarted all of this. Is hearing shows from backstage, not being able to see all the costumes and lights and special effects, but having seen it in rehearsals.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
I do love, when you have a monitor backstage, just
Mhm.
hearing what's going on, and because you can't, sometimes you're on stage, you can literally see your audience, fidgeting or moving
Mhm.
around or react. You can see smiles when you can't necessarily hear laughs.
Yeah.
But you really, really, really listen when you're just backstage with a monitor.
Yeah.
So here's what sets you apart. I'm sure lots of things set you apart, but this one really strikes me that you were the kind of geek guy who wanted to figure out how to make it work, and you were into the sound of it. But then you started a podcast, which put you in front of the microphone.
Correct.
Yeah. Is that a
Yeah.
big leap for you?
It wasn't not so much a big leap. I mean, as a child, you're playing with ideas all the time, playing with, maybe playing DJ or playing radio, in your bedroom or whatever. So this was a way to sort of get out beyond that. I had, playing around with, seeing how far the signal could go in a way. Coming a little bit back to this radio thing too, but seeing how far my voice could be heard, was a big part of it. But also seeing what could I do to impact the community that I was passionate about, and seeing this podcasting as a vehicle for that.
Yeah.
Became just something I was, just said, okay, I'm going to do this, and step in front and see what happens.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you have a following?
I did. It was shocking at first, because it actually caused me to stop doing it for about 2 weeks, because I saw that all of a sudden 4,000 people were following me.
Really?
And it was all over the world. It was Germany, it was Japan. I had followers in Ireland, in New York, in LA, and it was like in Seattle, and I was like, it freaked me out for 2 weeks, and then I got my head around it and then said, okay, this is cool, and let's do it from that, knowing that people are listening now, because when people aren't listening, it doesn't matter, but all of a sudden when people are listening, now it matters. Now you have, now you have a voice. And so I began taking it much more seriously once I realized I had that kind of an audience.
Yeah. That a certain responsibility comes with it.
Absolutely.
We have a tweet. How's your experience transitioning from analog to digital sound, and how do you keep up with the changing audio trends, asks Gorilla Camera.
Okay. That's an interesting question.
That's someone who may know what he's talking about.
May know. Being that I started in analog sound in Seattle, I went to the Art Institute of Seattle and studied audio production there. And it was a neat place because they first showed you the analog tape decks. They gave, you had to qualify on the analog tape decks, meaning you had to know how to work them, how to clean them, how to maintain them, how to fix them if they were broken, and you had to take all these tests. So coming from that environment of having to work with analog, and then they go, and now here's a computer, and here's how you work with this, was a really interesting time, because that's when I was being taught was right on the cusp between the two. And so how I had to deal with that was to simply, I learned one as the foundation, then you take the other, this new technology as being your new thing, and find a way to correlate the two. This worked this way on this works like this over here, and how does that relate? And one of the things, like an example is audio levels. On an analog tape deck, you have 0, and 0 is this number that's not absolute on an analog tape deck. But in the digital world, 0 is absolute. 0 is the top of the scale, the end. And so in digital, your 0 point that exists on tape is 12 decibels quieter. And this is really technical. And,
Okay, well, okay, we have a disparity here in the
but there's a
sound
disparity, and you figure out what's what. So the question, let me read the question again. So transitioning from analog to digital that's how I did it, was just to make a correlation between these two technologies that are different and find a common ground between the two. The second part of your question is, how do you keep up with changing audio trends? You read about them.
He's a geek.
I'm a geek. They happen, you find out about them, and then all of a sudden you've got to keep up. You've got to, keep up with the technology, keep up with the changes. And so you've got to constantly be reading, constantly be learning.
Yeah. What are you reading? Wired?
Wired is one of them. There's also Backstage, a website for backstage texts, and you read those long forums that get into what people are doing, new equipment, new ways of doing things. For like in-ear monitors is all the rage right now. As opposed to a speaker on the floor. Yeah. You get less feedback and all that. So how are people using them? What brands? Those kinds of things. But you just go online and read.
Yeah. Do you get much of an opportunity to delve into new technology? When it's hot with HPR. How advanced are they over there?
We're fairly advanced.
Yeah.
We about a year ago moved into the digital multi-track recording for our big studio. After we started recording concerts and doing 2-track recordings, and then I finally decided it was time to upgrade. So I asked, and we got the latest and greatest, multi-track USB interfaces or FireWire interfaces to connect to a computer to then output the signal, track by track for the computer.
Oh, okay.
So I can then go back and mix the concert any way I want, which is kind of what I started doing 25 years ago back in Seattle.
So if you're particularly fond of the violin section, if
right, I
that's
can
you
boost that
really
up,
like your strings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But I think the last test I did, I pushed it pretty far and was fairly happy with what I got. So I'm happy with what we've got now.
Oh, that's very cool. And by the way,
Yeah.
thank you for your question, Gorilla Camera.
I think I know him.
It sounds really familiar. We know him, don't we? Okay. If someone doesn't have their real name on there, I don't want to say it though. Do you have a preference for analog versus digital?
I don't. Analogs, tape sounded better. It had this warmer, richer tone to it. But digital has this wonderful control that I didn't have with tape. And I only worked with tape for about 6 months before the whole world changed and went to digital. So it wasn't a whole lot of time for me to play with tape in the professional world. As a non-professional, I played with tape for a very long time, but the warmth of tape was nice, but the control with digital is what gets us where we are today. So there's trade-offs either way.
Yeah. And the longevity.
Yeah.
I mean, I had tapes, my Dark Side of the Moon tape snapped. That'll never happen to the
Yeah.
CD. It'll really never happen to the music that's now living in the cloud.
Correct.
I don't have
Yeah.
to worry.
The other thing that digital has over analog is the cleanliness of it. And I can get a very clean, very clear recording that I couldn't get with analog because of the way that the nature of the technology. And the safety of the recording as well. Tape had this preference. If you didn't store it properly, you had a problem with print through. You had something on the layer above would leak through the layer below.
Oh.
And you'd end up hearing other things, you know. It's called print through. But with digital, you don't have that problem anymore. So a lot of things got solved with digital.
Yeah, by losing that warmth of the sound, which some people.
Which now you can put back in through plugins and through processing. You can add that effect back in.
Oh.
And yeah.
If you're feeling nostalgic.
If you're feeling nostalgic,
you can just put that right back in there. So do you have? How long did you do your podcast?
I did it for about a year.
Do you have any desire to? You now have a show on HBO.
I do have a show, yeah.
But very different than what you were doing.
Correct, yeah.
Do you ever want to go back to the podcast?
I think about it all the time.
Do you ever want to sit here?
I could, maybe.
Oh, well, Jay, see if Jay Fidel's still in the studio.
Someday, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to podcasting, I love the idea of the independent network that it creates. I love the idea of not having any attachment to anything except something that you've built. It's much harder today to do a podcast than it was when I started in 2004.
Wait, what? Oh, because there's such a proliferation.
Because there's a huge market now. A lot of people are out there. There's a lot of noise. And to get above the noise is going to be tricky. Back in 2004, there was 5 of us from Hawaii podcasting.
Right,
You
okay,
know.
so it was easy to find you. What about Periscope?
Periscope, I use Periscope occasionally, here and there.
Yeah. That's one of those that I see, there's so much potential and there's it's that beginning layer of people. I was one of the first people on Twitter and it was a conversation with my friends and, and now it's, a lot more.
Yeah.
So I know Periscope, we're just in that burgeoning phase where it is still very pure and friendly.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure where I want to go with it. What do I need to put in there? What is needed from me?
I watch Friends on Periscope, and a few people who I don't know, who I just will follow because they're just amazing people. They have incredible lives. My friend Jamie does like a diary through hers, and talks about her life, talks about her treatments with cancer, and it's a very powerful thing that she's using Periscope for. I find that that's an interesting phenomenon, that we're using technology to connect now, and that Periscope is one of those ways we can connect with each other on a very private level, which scares me at the same time as it intrigues me.
Yeah.
And there's another guy I watch who's a photographer who, he's on every day on Periscope, and he's showing you what his backyard looks like, and he's checking out the waves, and going, this is what's happening in the North Shore right now, or this is where I'm on Kauai, I'm in India, and he's just showing you his life,
Yeah.
And he periscopes about a half hour every day.
Well,
And it's incredible.
it's almost, I had, when I was getting ready for my move out here, I did an online diary that I posted up to YouTube, and it was really for myself. To catalog, I want a record of this, and then I saw that people were looking at it, and I thought, oh, that's not, that was really meant to be private. I think before I really want to go into Periscope in any big way, I would make sure that I have to know exactly why I am doing this.
Correct. You want to make sure you have a sense of what you want to do with it, where you want to go with it, why you want to go there before you go there.
Not just chatting.
Not just go in and then, like you said, come out of it going, oh, I just spilled the beans on something I shouldn't have, or.
I'm going to tell a really quick story, and then we're going to go to break. I was on Periscope, and when I first got on it, I guess maybe it was about last year this time, and there was really all of the refugees from Syria. It was really just hitting the news, and there was someone in Syria broadcasting, and I'm like, oh, what are they going to talk about? I may not be able to understand the language, but the emotion will be there. It was a guy masturbating.
Oh, no.
Dang
No.
it, I really wanted something meaningful to come out of this forum. And with that, we're going to go to break. Please stay put. We'll be right back in a minute for our last segment.
Aloha, my name is Reg Baker, and I'm the host of Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. Business in Hawaii is a program that talks about the positive stories in Hawaii. We're tired of hearing all the negativity. We don't want to hear about all the downside. We want to hear positive stories about business in Hawaii, and that's what Business in Hawaii is all about. We broadcast live every Thursday at 2 o'clock. Go to livestream.com for that live broadcast, and we also rebroadcast on Olelo 54 and OC 16. We look forward to seeing you on the show. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Aloha.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on Think Tech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
Hi, we're back with Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Network. I am Donna Blanchard, and I'm talking with the Mixed Media Production Manager for HPR, Jason Taglianetti. And you just said, and when it makes sense, something like Periscope and Snapchat is very different for you because you're a very oral person. Thank you. I listen, sometimes I will listen to books on tape, or I'll listen to like Radio Lab. You know, I do listen to the radio, but it's really hard for me to stay engaged. If I'm driving, then I can listen. But I'm such a visual person, I have to have the visual stimulation. So
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just the opposite. I can almost disregard my eyes completely, except for walking into walls. But it's that kind of thing for me where I spend so much time listening that my world is processed through my ears.
Interesting.
And then the visual is, oh, okay, that car is red, the one that almost hit me.
Then you get it. I will sit in a meeting, and I'm not the secretary of any organizations right now, but I will still take notes because it's not real to me until I see it. Yeah, I can see you say it, but it becomes that much more real when I actually type out the words. I may never look at it again, but that's how I digest it.
Yeah, I used to drive people bonkers because I would sometimes not look at you and not look at people and still hear every word you say. Yeah. And drove an ex-girlfriend bonkers.
I was just going to say that's not good.
because she'd say, you're not listening. Go, yeah, I am. And I repeat every word she said, and she'd go, oh my God.
We hate it when you do that, by the way.
I learned that. I don't
we don't mean listening, we mean hearing.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We've got an interesting question here from Ina Paddle. How can a company in Honolulu be on a show at HPR to promote its product or service? Well, Ina, you want to answer, Ina?
We have multiple. We have a morning talk show that we have called The Conversation, and they'll often look at things that are happening in the community, and we'll put feelers out and see who will come on the show to talk about what's going on and what they're a part of. Many times it's issue driven or it's arts and culture related. We're not an advertising agency or an advertising medium, so we don't advertise products or services in that way. We also have we do have an underwriting program. People can sponsor the station, they sponsor programs, and then as a direct benefit, they get their name, the company name out there, their message out there through short 15-second spots, basically. That's how you can do it, basically.
If it's a nonprofit organization, you also have your community calendar.
Correct. Yeah.
So thank you for your question, Ina. I know you're involved with some theater groups in the area outside of HPR.
I am.
You want to talk a little bit about what kind of work you do there?
For the past, I'd say maybe 15 or 16 years, I've been a sound designer working in theater. I've worked at theaters like Manoa Valley Theater mostly, but I've also done work for Kumukuhua Theater. I've done work for Honolulu Theater for Youth, and Army Community Theater as well when they were still functioning. Yeah. And the bulk of the job for a sound designer is basically a sound storyteller. Someone who's going to take the script and incorporate sound elements so that they can further the storytelling that's happening on stage through the acting, through the dancing, through the costumes and lights as well.
Have you ever run into a moment where you had to back up because you were actually changing the story or moving in maybe a different direction than the director?
Not really. I mean, it never gets that far that you reach that point. At least for me, it didn't. We always talked about what we were going to do before we did it, and we always, worked it through and said, what if for this moment I have this piece of music, or what if I have this sound effect here instead of where the script calls for it, or but we work together to make sure that we're not. So we're not changing the story or changing the mood unless we've talked about it. That's
Gotcha.
my point. So
Okay.
it's never played something and then said, oh, that's if the director says, oh, that's not going to work, we've always talked about it beforehand. They've heard samples before we've done it, so.
They know where you go, okay.
And then they know where you're going, yeah.
I did one time work with a light designer who, because she did a sudden blackout at the end of a scene, it brought a laugh. It made it made the moment even more funny. And a sound designer who brought in at the end of a scene that was about there was seduction in there. It was a comedy, so it was completely above board to do this. But they put in the song, the Meatloaf song, "Stop Right There."
Oh yeah,
Which was got their they took the stage for just a moment with that. For the show.
That's something I'd never want to do as a sound engineer or a sound designer. I don't ever want to be seen on stage or heard on stage.
Yeah.
I always want to be, just slightly behind what's happening on stage so that I can support what's happening rather than here I'm inserting myself into this moment.
Yeah.
I prefer to be much more subtle in that. Except there was one show I was told to be not subtle. It was a Kumukuhua show, believe it or not. And
We do things.
but Harry Wong was directing, and we talked about this moment where these two fell in love, these boy and girl, and he wanted the Dreamweaver moment from Wayne's World without being Dreamweaver. And so we inserted the intro guitar riff from a Marvin Gaye song, the Let's Get It On, that just everybody just cracked up, and it was for a high school audience, and so everyone just laughed and cracked it up. And the song, after it went away, then it became, this is a real moment, But for that moment, it was funny. But that's what he wanted.
Oh, nice.
So that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, you were given that license too.
Yeah.
Do you? I have to think you. So you. I mean, you said you hear you absorb your world sort of through your ears. If you were not involved in sound somehow, where do you think you would? What would you want to do?
Before I wanted to be a sound engineer, I wanted to be a photographer. Interestingly enough,
crazy.
Which is weird, I know, but yeah, I wanted to. I was gonna that was one idea I had in my head, and I had abandoned music at that point, and I abandoned all of that, and I was gonna do it, and then just one day I was like, no, this is crazy. Let's go back to do the other thing.
Maybe you were giving yourself a sort of therapy with you were teaching yourself to take in to digest through visual, or at least it gave you more time. If you take a picture of it, it lasts longer.
I still do that. Still dabble, but that's about what it is dabbling.
Yeah. Well, we live in Hawaii, man. There's a lot of photographs to take around here too. So you said for when you're producing a show, for every 1 minute we hear, about 4 minutes go into it for you. Is that do you ever get the equivalent of writer's block with that, where you just don't know where to go with something, or?
Not really. No. I mean, a lot of times what I do with, for example, my program, Applause in a Small Room, where we're taking live concerts and condensing them down to an hour. What ends up happening is I will look for the best songs of the concert and then condense it down, taking out the stuff that's not as good. I may have 2 hours of great recordings, great performances, but taking out the ones that aren't as good and leaving the best of the best in. And there's really no block there at all. It's just a matter of listening and saying this one, this one, this one, this one, not this one. But the writer's block for me comes in, I have to write the script around all of that for myself. And then of course I get writer's block, but not in the sense of which songs do I pick or how do I transition from one song to the other. Those kinds of things, no.
Okay. So let's talk about your show, by the way. I'm glad
Okay.
that you brought it up. Applause in a Small Room. You are taking pre-recorded
Mm-hmm.
concerts they are recorded there in the Atherton studios?
Correct, yeah. We do a concert season that's usually 13 to 21 concerts long, and all in the Atherton studio, and then I record every single concert, and then air only the good ones, basically. The ones that are deemed good enough to pass the quality standard.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not a question of whether the concert was good, but sometimes the recording is not as great. Or sometimes it doesn't come across through just the recording alone. Sometimes you need the visual to tell the story with a particular concert. Sometimes you have dancers dancing and you can't see them on the radio,
yeah,
so that doesn't work. So it's not always just about a good performance versus a bad performance.
And what kind of groups have you had?
So we've had like Kuana Torres Kahele, Hawaiian trio type. We've had jazz. I've had the Hakalu Hulaville on my show. I've had Tommy James playing piano, and Von Barron playing drums. I can't remember the name of the group, but we've had those kinds of performers: jazz, blues, rock. We've had I think we've had reggae. I think we had the Green on once. That was kind of interesting. Yeah. So we've just covered the gamut of everything. I've had classical quintets, quartets, as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And it's cool that you get an opportunity to curate.
And to get the chance to curate and kind of do my own show. And
Yeah.
then the other cool thing is my friend Tim Bostock at the Kahilu Theater will occasionally call me up and say, I've got this concert, we can record it if you'd like it for your show. And I say, okay. And he sends me recordings of concerts. And so I've gotten, last December, Amy Hanaiali'i did a Christmas show, which he sent me, but unfortunately she was sick, so I couldn't air it because she was so sick.
Oh.
And I felt bad because it was such a really cool concert. She sang some really wonderful songs. But so I've had that opportunity. But we've done local musicians from the Kahilu Theater as well. And in the upcoming season, I'm going to air Jeff Peterson and Raiatea Helm from there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
We have just about a minute left. Okay, so you're going to be doing more work with Tim. You may bring back your podcast. You may have a show on Think Tech someday.
All right.
Anything else? Anything else on your agenda?
I'm just going to keep doing sound and keep exploring the medium and keep learning and growing as an artist.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you came down.
I'm glad.
I'm glad I finally
Yeah.
talked you into coming down
Thanks.
here, coming in the studio on a gorgeous day. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being here as well. There's a few other people I would like to thank. Rich Prapus, who's our floor manager right over there. Hi, Rich. I'd also like to thank our studio overlord, Zuri Bender, who is in my ear, and Jay Fidel, who somehow manages to put all of this together. Please join us next week on Center Stage, 2 o'clock on Wednesday. See you then. Bye.